Okay, this is Chapter 5, Floor Frames in your textbook. So we'll cover some of the concepts and terminology as they relate to floor frames. I do want to tell you that this is no substitution for reading the chapter. In order to complete this week's or this unit's section, make sure you read the chapter because your test and your homework assignment are both based on this. But I am going to go quickly over this and highlight some things for you and make sure we're all on the same point when it comes to this chapter. So the first thing I want to highlight to you guys is 3 types of framing methods, and they're right here. They discuss them in great detail in this book, so it's definitely worth the time to take the time to read over these. But balloon framing is, and I believe they have a pretty good illustration right here showing you what balloon framing is. This is balloon framing. And what you'll notice is the studs extend from all the way from the concrete floor all the way up to the roof line. Even on a 2-story house, they extend all the way up. The purpose of this is that the wall is built all in one shot, and the floor system is actually installed after the walls are built. So unlike platform framing where the floors are built first, this is the walls are built first. And you frame the walls up and you nail the floor joists to the sides of the studs. Plus you use a thing called a ribbon board. Some people may refer to it as a ledger. It is right here. It is a board cut into the sides of the studs, and what it does is it helps support the floor system because that floor system is only held up by nails without it. So knowing this, cutting a ledger board, or aka a ribbon board, in will help support the floor joists. Now this is an old style of framing. You can still do it today, but it is older. It's not as common today. Today we use a lot of platform framing. It is builds a lot better building for a couple of reasons. One, because the floors are better supported. 2, this is actually a little bit of a fire hazard because if you don't have fire blocking in there, if you have a fire breakout in the basement, the fire can actually go right up the wall cavity because it's open the whole way up, unless somebody took the time to block it off. So the fire possibility is there too. But anyways, this is balloon framing, and this is one reason to know what this is to see how the floor frames are built. The next framing method we're going to take a look at is post and beam. I always think Amish when I see this because this is old school barn building kind of technique stuff. But we do still build some garages out of it. And there are a lot of different variations of post and beam construction. So this is just one, and this is the old school with the pins and the joints. But nonetheless, this is a method of construction that we're allowed to still build with. But we normally don't build this particular type that often. But pole barns do exist. Post and beam construction does exist. And this is what it is. Okay. The next type that's the most popular is platform framing. Some people call this Western construction. Not sure where that name came from, probably from the West if I were to guess. But nonetheless, platform framing is something we do very much in today's age. A platform means we build a platform first, we build the floor, and then we stack the walls on top of it. Then we build the platform again, and we stack the walls on top of that again. So the walls are always sitting on top of a platform. That's the key difference. So knowing this is the most popular, and this is the one we centered our shop project around. So this is definitely one that you want to pay attention to. Let's take a quick look at this picture here. I do want to tell you that because this is on your test, actually, I believe. But just know that you have to identify these terms. Foundation wall, seal sealer, sometimes called foam sealer or foam seal, a seal plate, the header, also known as the rim joist or band board, floor joist, subfloor. Anchor bolts, in this case they got it 8 foot on center, but we all know that that actually is not the case now. That picture is actually in error. It is 6 foot on center. So just so you know that the book author probably drew that picture in 1980 or something. But 6 foot on center is definitely the maximum on center spacing we can put. Termite shields are not that popular in this area, but that's what they look like. If you get down to the south where termites are a real problem, they're a problem here though, but they're worse than other areas. You may have to put that termite shield there. Here's a picture of the anchor bolts. We're very familiar with what an anchor bolt is today. We did study the codes as they relate to that, but make sure you review the codes. This right here is an anchor strap. These are very nice if your building code officer will permit the use of these. They are definitely easier to work with because you don't have to drill or anything. You just set your plate, wrap that metal around and tack it in place. It's pretty nice, but some building code officers will not let this strap go. They just don't like them. So nonetheless, this is a girder. Girders are used to support the joists on one end. Usually the girder is placed halfway between the outside foundation walls. The total distance between supports is called the span. The span on most houses is too great for the joist to reach from wall to wall. In that case, the girder is used. So let me see if I can draw a picture. Of course, I know it's not going to be pretty because I'm drawing with my finger, but that's a basement wall. Basement wall, and somewhere in here is the steel beam girder. Usually has steel columns in the center, and because the floor joist is only able to span up to a certain distance, the girder helps support it. So this will overlap this one, and that's how typically houses are built, so that we don't have this large span. Without this girder here, this beam, this house would definitely be not as structurally sound, that's for sure. A lot of bounciness. So take time to read over girders. This is the pocket that the girder or beam sits in. A couple notes that you might want to take note of is the 1/2 inch clearance on the sides here. You have 4 inches bearing on the pocket, which is right here. So you have to have 4 inches bearing and 1/2 inch clearance on the sides. Or you can have these problems that they got highlighted here in picture 515 could happen. Okay, they talk a little bit about on-center spacing. They highlight 12, 16, and 24. If you take a look at it, on-center spacing right here. They call it modular spacing. They're just referring to the distance that they put the floor joists against. Of course, 16 is the most popular, but there are reasons to have 12 and 24. But you also know in your code book they actually have one more than they have listed here, which is 19.2. The reason these exist is because they break evenly on 4x8 sheets of like plywood. Those on-center spacings break evenly, so you don't have a lot of cut and wasted material. So that's why we have those uniform numbers. Take the time to look over this right here. Definitely on your test. These terms here: double trimmer, cripple joist header, which also could be a band board, regular joist, double header. So look over those terms on that, and take a look at this real fast too. Just notice how you frame underneath a partition wall. Now you always have to have some kind of support under a partition wall, especially when the partition wall is running parallel with the floor joists. Now the difference between this one and this one right here typically accounts for plumbing. The top one is very difficult to put plumbing in that wall, or HVAC like ductwork, because those floor joists are in the way. But on the bottom one, since you put blocking across, it's actually got spacing so that you can easily get ductwork or water lines or drain lines or even electric lines up the wall as needed. So definitely the one I'm going to tell you is the one you want to look at is this one, because this one right here actually causes a lot of problems when you do that. But nonetheless, you got to make sure you have support under your partition walls. It is building code, so pay attention to that. These are engineered wood joists. Sometimes you need to go greater spans, or if you want to go with something that's not warps as easily to humidity in your home, these are the answers. So definitely know what an engineered wood joist is. Read over this for you, for your so you know what they are all about. Okay. Do want to highlight a joist hanger. This is a joist hanger right here. Anytime you can't get your joist to set on the beam or have any kind of support on the beam itself, what we want to use is the joist hanger. So unlike up here, we were able to put supports under it here. These are actually older styles and notches. Today, that's not used as much anymore, but nonetheless, it does highlight the fact that when you need to use a joist hanger, and the answer is any time that the joist is not supported underneath. So if this area here has nothing underneath the floor joist and you're just face nailing that floor joist to an item, a joist hanger is a requirement. Bridging. Bridging is definitely something required. We studied the building codes as it relates to bridging. They mention it here too, but bridging, it prevents joists from springing sideways under a load. So just to keep joists straight up and down as they're supposed to be underneath a floor system, we use bridging. Bridging can be metal, wood. There's a couple different kinds of bridging out there. Here's an example of the metal bridging right here. So that is metal bridging. So again, it could be metal, could be wood, could be blocks of wood, but nonetheless what it does is it keeps those floor joists from rolling and becoming out of plumb. Okay, taking a look at this image, this gives you a little bit of guidance on nailing subfloor down. And nonetheless, I want to make sure you guys understand this. Taking a look at this, you can see that we have an 1/8 inch spacing between sheets. The reason is that the panels expand and contract. The other thing that you can see from this drawing is the lines are always staggered. So you never want to line joints together up. So if there was a joint here and here, that would be a big no-no. That would actually create a weak point. So we always stagger end joints on sheeting, on decking. Every 10 inches on center on the nails. Some people go 12 inches, which would be okay, but you know, here it says 10, and that's actually the safer of the two options. And every 6 inches on the edge, the nailing the perimeter of this. So make sure you know this, because I believe there is a question of this on your test. So become familiar with this and you know, review it for your knowledge. Okay, we do use glue, construction adhesive, under floors like this. The reason we do that, we glue it down before we put the decking down, or AKA subflooring. It prevents squeaks. So in houses, when you walk over the floors, to keep the subflooring from rubbing on the floor joists, we put this glue down, and then the squeaking is greatly reduced. So that is definitely a plus. It is definitely the rules, and it's definitely something we do. So make sure you always glue that down. Real fast, I wanted to show you what a cantilever is. A cantilever is whenever a section of the floor extends past the bottom wall. So here you have a cantilevered section of floor, and they cantilevered it out. So I just wanted to make sure you're aware of the cantilever. You can see the cantilever here too, and it supports this right here. So I wanted to make sure you're aware of what a cantilever is. So take the time to read over this section too, because that's a cantilever. Okay, again, I just went over some highlights in this. There's no substitute for reading this chapter. I really would like you to read the chapter. There is a homework assignment and a test. I think there's maybe like 12 or 15 questions on the test. They gave you about an hour to do it. So, and the test questions are all from this chapter during this week's content. So make sure you review this chapter, read over it, and if you have any questions, let me know. But that'll be all for today. Have a nice day.